Okay, thank everybody for coming today. Thank you very much. Alex is coming on. Thank you, Bernie, for being here, and Larry and Kunga Nima. Thank you very much. And folks that are on YouTube, thank you very much for joining. Anytime you'd like to reach out to us and have any questions or comments, we can be reached at buddhapracticestudy.com at gmail.com or our website at buddhapracticestudy.com. So,
What's your um, YouTube channel called?
Buddha Practice Study.
Okay.
It's linked from the website too.
Yeah. So we send out messages each week with the link on it. And once you click on that link, it opens up, to the YouTube, and then you can subscribe to the channel, and you get all the things that have been on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we send that out in an email to each one of you guys, directly. If anybody on YouTube wants it, we can send that to you, but you should already have that if you're on YouTube already. All right, I'm going to do the opening prayers, just the short refuge and the four immeasurables. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chonam la Shangju Bardo Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinsoki Pe Sonamgi Chola Penshir Sange Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadamyam pesam chantam she dewadang dewe grodang dampar jorchi. Dugnal dang dunal gi gudang drawar jorchi. Dugnal me pe dewa dang mi drawar jorchi. Nay ring chak dang ni dang drawe tang namla ne pa jorchi. And then the purification recitation. Om Ahung Bodhicitta Mahasuka Janatatu Om Rulu Rulu Hung Jo Hum. Om Ahung Bodhicitta Mahasuka Janatatu Om Rulu Rulu Hung Jo Hum. Om Ahung Bodhicitta Mahasuka Janatatu Om Rulu Rulu Hung Jo Hum. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Palaya Vajrasattva Tanopa Justajedo Me Bawa Suto Kayo Me Bawa Supo Kayo Me Bawa Anuraktu Me Bawa Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sutsan Suya Kuruhung Ha 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 ho Bhagawan Sara Tadagata Bajra Bame Mansa Bajri Bawa Maha Samaya Satwaha. Om Bajra Satwa Samaya Manu Palaya Bajra Satwa Tanopa Justajedo Mebawa Suto Kayo Mebawa Supo Kayo Mebawa Anu Raktu Me Bawa, Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa, Sara Karma Sitsa Me, Sitsan Triya Kuru Hung, Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan, Sara Tadagata, Bajra Mame Munsa, Bajri Bawa Maha Samaya, Satwa Ha. Om Bajra Satwa Samaya, Manu Palaya, Bajra Satwa Tenopa, Tristajedo me bawa, Suto kayo me bawa, Supo kayo me bawa, Anuraktu me bawa, Sara Siddhi me prayatsa, Sara karma sutsa me, sitsan triya kuru hung, ha 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 ha, ho bhagawan, Sara tada gata bajra ba me mansa, bajri bawa maha samaya, satwa ha. The English translation is Om Vajrasattva Samaya, help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non duality. Ah. Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions about anything that we've discussed? Last week we talked about the Matara and the Versace yoginis. Anybody have any comments about those fierce deities? Okay. So where we left off, according to my notes, we were at the bottom of page 48 in the daily practice of the Bardo Thodol. So what I'd like to read now is I'm going to read myself from the text. So we're on page 49. So it says, Om Ah Hum. In the channel branch of the eastern gate of the skull within one's brain is the horse-headed Ankusa Vajratesaji, white in color, carrying an iron hook and a skull. In the channel branch at the southern gate of the skull within one's brain is the sow-headed Pasa Vajramoka, yellow in color, holding a noose and a skull. In the channel branch at the western gate of the skull, within one's brain, is the lion-headed Spota Vajraloka, red in color, carrying an iron chain and a skull. In the channel branch at the northern gate of the skull, within one's brain, is the snake-headed Ganta Vajravatali, green in color, holding a bell and a skull. So we would say Om, Ah, or rather Za, Hong, Bam, Ho, that we are hooking with the deity. We are tying ourselves up with the deity. We are locking ourselves up with the deity, and we are rejoicing with the deity. So we can say hooking, binding, locking, rejoicing. We can also say inviting, entering, mixing, and becoming non dual with the deity. So here with the iron hook, we're hooking. With the noose, we're binding up, we're tying up. With the chain, we're locking ourselves up. And with the bell, we are rejoicing. And you can see the images of those four deities there on the paper there. So you can see that on the sides of the text. So here we recite now the next page, 50. It says, To you, the four female gatekeepers, who are pristine cognition and emanational form, I bow down, make offerings, take refuge, and pray. As soon as we, the deceased, die and begin to transmigrate, at that very moment when the visions of the intermediate state of reality dawn, and we, the deceased, roam alone in cyclic existence, driven by the deep-seated confused perceptions. May Ankusa and Pasa draw us forward, obstructing the entrances of confusing thought, excuse me, entrances to confusion through the four types of birth, and opening the doors to the four rights of pure enlightened activity. May Spota and Ganta support us from behind, and thus encircled may we be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. So here are these four gatekeepers, and I'm just going to screen share this image of the mandala. Here is here's the mandala. So this is the inner gatekeepers here. So this right here would be um, the channel branch of the eastern gate is here. So this is the eastern gate. Then over on this side here would be the southern gate, and over here up here would be the western gate, and then over here would be the northern gate. So you imagine that this mandala is this mandala is a three-dimensional mandala. We're looking at it in two dimensions, but imagine that it is a three-dimensional mandala and that there are tiers on this mandala. And of course, the center uppermost would be the center part here where the Haruka class Buddhas are around here, and then would come the Matara, then would come the Basachi, and then would come the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper here to enter into to keep the deity to keep the wayfarer, the one who is traveling, within the center part here to be able to receive the blessing of the compassion of the Haruka class, and then um, and then if they did not were not successful in being able to block the doorway, then they would move further down into this inner gatekeeper here, who is trying to keep the wayfarer inside this center chamber here, which would be the emanation of the wrathful deities with their great compassion and so on. So we would look at it as doorways going through these um, to maintain their presence within the mandala and not go further down and exit the mandala altogether and then be reborn as in one of the egg birth or womb birth or a miraculous birth or a heat and moisture birth, that they would remain as a spiritual body, have a spiritual body within this mandala. So you visualize that gatekeeper like that. So you have a copy of this and you can examine that. So so the other thing that this gatekeeper is working to be present for, to be able to help beings to recall the enlightened activities of pacification from the east, would be enriching from the south, and magnetizing subjugation from the west, and from the north would be challenging, or the wrathful compassion of challenging the deity, the wayfarer, to be able to maintain within this mandala and not exit the mandala. So it's another possibility of rescue by these wrathful deities, these fierce deities, to keep the wayfarer within the mandala. So, if there's any comments or questions about this part, because for a moment now, we're going to leave the mandala and we're going to recognize the projectoresses. So this is on starts in our text on page 51. So this is something a little different. So I'm going to read this, recite this, homage to the eight great projectoresses who propel beings to exalted rebirths. So this is within the human being or within the wayfarer. It'd be better to say the wayfarer who is a spiritual body and who through the interaction of these other fierce deities and so on has remembered something, has been able to pull together what they have done in the past, their past karma and so on, and has been able to pull this energy together and is projecting themselves out of being in this state of being in the bardos to be able to get to the bardo or rather the peaceful deities to be able to remain within the bardo of reality and not have to be reborn again. So they're projecting this through their accumulations that they have made already, through the work that they have done in prior life and so on. So there's eight great projectoresses. So I'm going to recite this now. And you can see that on the two sides of the text are images to help us to visualize what the how they operate, what tools, what implements they use to symbolize their projection. So the first one here on page 51. I bow down to the projectoress who casts a noose, manifestation of the natural purity of reality. Clothed in flayed hides, she unites the three levels of existence. With the pure Buddha fields, however these may manifest, and casts her noose of solar rays, projecting beings of the tricheliocosm into higher rebirths. The next page. I bow down to the projectoress who casts a pike, holding a blood-filled skull and casting a pike. She purifies the five dissonant mental states to dispel permanently the diseases of conceptual thought. The force of her compassion, rich in skillful means, projecting human beings into higher rebirths. I bow down to the projectress who rings a bell, holding to her heart a blood-filled skull. She subjugates the entire tricheliocosm to secure ignorant sentient beings in reality's expanse. The resonance of her charisma, whoop, excuse me, page 54. I bow down.
53,
I'm
right?
sorry, I got mixed up here. I was right. It was right the first time. I'm sorry. I'm going to start on the bottom of page 52 to get these numbers kind of run together with my vision. I don't see it real good. I should use the magnifying glass. I bow down to the projectress who rings a bell, holding to her heart a blood-filled skull. She subjugates the entire tricheliocosm to secure ignorant sentient beings in reality's expanse. The resonance of her charisma, projecting beings of the tricheliocosm into higher rebirths. I bow down to the projectoress who carries a Garuda, her body an exquisite white yellow, signifying her proficiency in the rites of pacification and enrichment, holding to her heart a blood-filled skull to overpower the five sensory desires. She carries a Vajra and a large Garuda, projecting the gods into higher realms, into higher rebirths. Now, page 54. I bow down to the projectoress who casts a shooting star, her awesome body in exquisite blue-black, holding a Vajra and casting a shooting star to avert the intensity of the great battle. She drinks blood from a skull, projecting the anti-gods into higher rebirths. I bow down to the projectress who holds a thunderbolt garland, her body part red and part black, signifying proficiency in the rites of subjugation and wrath, her facial expression fixed in domination. To purify and ease outer and inner obscurations, she wields a vajra and a thunderbolt garland, projecting anguished spirits into higher rebirths. I bow down to the projectress who wields an eagle feathered banner, her body part white and part black, signifying her proficiency in the rites of pacification and wrath, drinking blood from a skull to dissolve delusion into emptiness. She holds a vajra and wields an eagle feathered banner, projecting animals into higher rebirths. I bow down to the projectress who holds a sword, her body part yellow and part black, signifying her proficiency in the rites of enrichment and wrath, drinking blood from a skull to dissolve hells into emptiness. She holds a vajra and a sword, projecting the hell beings into higher rebirths. Om Ah Hum. In the minor channels of the eastern anal courtyard of one skull stands the six queens of yoga who enact the rites of pacification. So we'll pause here and go back to the projectoresses to talk about them a little bit. So how this works in the Bardo is quite abstract and quite a departure from everything that we've been going through here and everything, because the wayfarer has been experiencing all these different deities and so on, who are guiding them to be able to get back to the peaceful deities, to be able to remain within the bardo of reality and so on. So these projectoresses are quite striking, and they don't appear in the actual instructions, the guide, as you're guiding a person who has passed away. You're not guiding them in that part of the book. We don't see that. This is more for ourselves who are doing the approach from the bottom up. Remember, several weeks ago we talked about that there's a top down where we die our body, we're ejecting our inner breath, we're ejecting our spiritual nature and so on, and it's going through all the bardo of death into the bardo of reality. And this is where this has been this whole time. But as from the bottom up, as Carl Jung suggested, that this reading of this is for the human being who is engaged in this bardo from the bottom up, who is going through the purification process to be able to get to the bardo of reality and maintain in the bardo of reality, even though they are still in the bardo of living, so that when they pass, when their body drops, that they are the spiritual body is completely been freed. It's been released. It's been liberated from the physical body, from the intellectual body. So it doesn't even notice that the body has gone away. So it goes through the bardo of death quite effortlessly and abides within the bardo of reality as a Buddha, as an enlightened being. So this projectoress is speaks to someone who is on this path from the bottom up, who has come to realization, who has come to the accumulation or the fruits of their accumulation of their practices and so on, and becomes this projectoress, one of these eight great projectoresses, who is liberating themselves. And in each one of these eight projectoresses are, mentioned in terms of one of the realms, whether it's a god realm, whether it's a demigod realm, whether it's a human realm, whether it's the animal realm, or the hungry ghost realm, the angry spirit realm, or the hell realms, and so on. So these are beings who have accomplished a great deal already, before they have passed, while they are, getting to whatever level that they are, and has come to this point now where they are realizing this great accumulation, this great state of their spirituality, and they're able to project themselves into that purity, into that absolute nature, and to be able to maintain that through these implements and so on, they are they are able to maintain that presence of that uh, accomplishment. So I have, I'm going to send to you each, there's something here. I have another conversation that I've had with Gemini, because explanation of this, there's not much explanation in the Bardo Thodol in this particular translation of Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Thodol by Gourmet Dorje. But there are other conversations that Gemini has available to them because they have a lot of information. They're the great librarian, if you will. So I asked if there was more information. So Gemini shared a number of things with me about that, and I've printed it, and I'm going to send it to you so you can read this and think about this and make this part of your contemplation as you are going through, the listening process, the study process, the contemplation process that gives way to the meditative process, which is the culmination of this, which becomes the rebirth. So here is like an instantaneous rebirth as a projectoress. And it's very powerful and quite surprising. And so I think it's a great blessing that we get to recognize this and realize this. And, as we've said many times, for us to be where we are now in this physical place and this phenomenal nature and to be studying these things speaks to our accomplishments and so on in past lives. So, so to be able to recognize this function of the projectoresses is quite powerful. Any comments or questions? What do you think about that? Okay, no thoughts, huh? Okay. All right, well, that's fine. I hope that you take these discussions and these explanations and the sharing of this to heart, and this becomes a part of your practice. At least to read it one or two, three, four more times, whatever you can, and maybe you'll be moved to want to read this in its entirety for someone who has passed or something like that, because in that kind of energized atmosphere, this all really begins to have things that start fitting in together.
So it's interesting, Commodore J, how there's 8 of them, and there's 6 realms, and it looks so. There's the first one is the 3 levels of existence, and then the second one is liberating people from the 5 dissonant mental state, dissonant mental states, and then from there it goes to the. It's not exactly. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, it speaks about
All
the
beings.
trichilocosm and so it's talking also about the you can look at it in terms of consciousness levels, the 8 consciousnesses. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
the 8 consciousness levels: sight, smell, taste, and so on like that. The mental consciousness that processes all that information. Then there's the egocentric, and then there is the alaya consciousness, and so on. So you can I think that you can look at these projectoresses in terms of those consciousnesses as well.
Is that
So
what the is that one of the things that you got through the Gemini conversation?
no, the it's through my experience with it, you know. So studying these different things and being able to see how things come together is something that I was able to say, well, there's a corollary here. And with the tricheliocosm is very, very big. It's huge. And it's like it's like the alaya consciousness, the soul consciousness, if you will, the soul, consciousness. And the tricheliocosm is a smaller cosm, realm within that tricheliocosm. And that's more like the individual ego. And then the mental consciousness and so on is a smaller subset of that. And then the individual consciousness of sight and so on like that is smaller still. So there's these corollaries that I think, are part of the investigation or part of the contemplation, and ultimately gets liberated. That's the key point to always remember. We're doing all this stuff so that we're able to liberate from it, that we're able to see what all these things are, all these permutations of the way all this phenomenal nature works, you know, and then we're able to just compartmentalize it to say, oh, that's all part of phenomenal nature. But, and that's just a display, that's all in emptiness. That's just the display of emptiness. So I think there's a whole process here that we need to engage in. And whatever our background is, I did it this way. It doesn't mean that you have to do it this way, but here's all the data, if you will. Here's all the information. And it's up to each one of us to be able to engage with this and have experience with it. So it sounds pretty bizarre, doesn't
I mean, it doesn't sound any more bizarre than anything else we've been talking about for the last month.
it? Well, no, but it is all
In the
bizarre.
context of the universe, it seems to fit right in.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Alex.
Yeah, Madhurja. Uh, my understanding is uh, maybe very few people able to recognize or visualize these protectors in their shape as drawn. Their do they have any instructions on like how to recognize them, how to recognize those forces? Maybe on some general features, maybe by color, maybe by emotion, or that you feel when you encounter those.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And well, it's all contained within this text here.
Mhm.
So taking each line of text, each phrase of the text of each line, and then bringing that together with yourself, with your own emotions, with your own misconceptions. That's because all this is symbolic of that. All these images are just, displays of positive virtue, negative non-virtue, and so on, in the ways in which we do that through all the afflictive emotions and so on, and all the confusions. So we're not seeing these deities as anything other than just fabrications, just anthropomorphic kind of identity to help us to remember this. But it's all about ourselves. So yes, it's dissecting your own emotions, your own mental process, your own brain thoughts that have been blocking up your heart. when your heart gets released, all this goes away. But the thing that is blocking it up is all this mental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking this mental stuff, it's such an elaborate way of being able to say, well, this is how complex it is to be a human being,
Mm-hmm.
and we allow ourselves um, to be subdued by this, to be like the ring in our nose, to be pulled around by all these mental ideas that we have and so on. So we need to be able to disperse these things through this process and let these things go. And then as these things begin to arise, as other things, because you do one, other things still can come up. But then you start to see a pattern. Oh, this keeps on happening over and over again. I have to apply the same logic, the same structure that I applied to the first one that I did. Oh, I see it works with the second one, it works with the third one. And then you're seeing all this complexity of the five, or rather the eight consciousness of being a human being, and so on, and you begin to see all this together.
So okay, yes, and the gates of the palace that are present there, and they're guarding those gates. So is our goal to kind of escape out out through those?
No, we're trying
Oh,
to stay within the mandala.
oh, we're staying within mandala.
We want to stay within the mandala. We want to get to the center of the mandala. And that's a good point, what you just said, because what happens is, as we are working to that end, to be able to stay, we may reach a level of being a Pasachi, of being a gatekeeper, of being a Matara, of being a Haruka, that
Mm-hmm.
we are doing that not just for ourselves, but for other beings.
Mm-hmm.
And we find ourselves having the compassion, having the power, having the work of these deities, that we are the embodiment of those deities. And we begin to do that in our society, in the way that we operate and so on.
Mm-hmm. Taking on those roles, yes. Mm-hmm.
Taking on those roles. Yes. Oh, I'm behaving like a Haruka. Oh, I'm behaving like a Matara. Oh, I'm behaving like a gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Or even I'm behaving like the wisdom Buddhas, the five wisdom Buddhas. So the deity yoga, remember this, the deity yoga is part and parcel of this. We're looking at, we're breaking this down in a very broad sense, but all the deities that we would do in the tantric practices are all involved in all of this.
Okay. So,
So, I guess we all got to ask ourselves the question, do I want to take the time to do all this? Is this necessary? Can I just practice, medicine Buddha or green Tara or Shenrezig or whatever, and have the benefit, have the blessing, and have the purity to be able to remain in the bardo of reality and not have to take on another life again. If that's our goal, do we want to be a perfected Buddha? Am I ready to do that? So everybody has to answer that question for themselves. Do you want to go through all this? Do you want to do all this? Why would you want to do it? Look at the what, the why, and the how.
Right, and could you remind what page we are on now?
Well, I just finished page number 56.
56. Okay.
Are you talking about in the book? Do you have a copy of the text?
Like I have several different texts, and I'm trying to locate.
Yeah, I don't know that you have. I don't know that you have this text unless you've got. Do you have this text, the Gourmet Dorje translation?
If like I still have some PDFs. I'm not sure which
Right.
one is which actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry because I know you've been coming and going, you've been busy and everything. So, you know, there's a we've been trying to maintain a certain continuity in the way we're moving. You know, so where it is in relation to what information you have, I can't say right now.
Yeah, so like maybe are we on certain chapter there or
We're
certain
on the
divi
section that this is the main daily practice to remind ourselves of the function of the deities, the peaceful and wrathful deities.
Mhm.
Pema Dorje, maybe it would be helpful if you told Alex the book that you took the document that we're looking out of.
Well, I did. That's what this is.
Okay.
That's the Gourmet Dorje translation.
Mhm.
So, and this is it's available in paperback, and there might be used copies or some hardback copies available. But that's what this is. Now that I know there's paperback that's available, you can get it from Amazon. And if you want a text, you know, we can print more of these texts if you want a complete text and everything. So, you know, for me, again, you know, I say this almost every time is, you know, I'm limited in my ability to be able to, you know, talk about this, to convey this. You know, I think my job here is to introduce you to this, that this is, you know, this is something that is very, very, very profound and will help in everything else that you do in terms of tantric Buddhism and so on. Um, it really gives a very broad understanding of the deities, the 100 deities, as it says here, and so on, the Shitro deities, and uh, and all the other deities that we do in tantric practice, from the Abhidharma and so on, is all related to this. You know, this is like the grand picture of it all.
Mhm.
So I'm going to put this image up again, this mandala, because I want to say that where we are in our lives today, whoops, in our lives, we're outside of this mandala,
Mhm.
you know, and we want to be in the center of the mandala if we can. That's what we're trying to do. So we're outside of it. And then as we are going from the bottom up, as Carl Jung had talked about, we're entering through these gateways. This is one gateway. If you can see this in the east, if you can see my cursor, and over here on the left side of the mandala is the south side, and there's a gate. There's a gateway there, and then there's a gateway in the western side, and a gateway in the northern side, and we're entering that through our studies, through our understanding, through our meditative process, and then we come into this courtyard here, and this courtyard we begin to engage in meeting other um, uh, yogis and yoginis, people who are what we might call our sangha, our brothers and sisters, and so on, who are helping us to recognize our own nature the positive part of our virtuous nature and our non-virtuous nature. And then through those interactions, we begin, as we purify, we move further and further towards the center, coming in from these different directions and so on. So this is what we're trying to do, is to make our way in this. As from the top down, this being the center, this being like a stupa, from the top down, we're coming down through this. And what is happening, if we're not pure enough to remain in the center, we start moving towards the exit because we don't have enough virtue, we don't have enough power, spiritual power. Our spirituality is not strong enough for us to be able to remain in the mandala. We want to have a physical body. We want to have an ego. We want to respond to our karma, because this is all pure freedom in here. And whether we are prepared to be able to be that free is what we are working for. So as we are now, ordinary human beings working up towards the center, as we die and we're just pure spirit, we're trying to remain in here, but we're not able to, and we start, leaking out. We start falling to the bottom of this, to come back out, to have another body, to have another opportunity to purify ourselves.
Okay.
So I'm going to move to the next part here. We can come back to this as questions come up, because it is, one thing sparks another. But so I'm on page 57 in the text now. So it says, Om Ahom. In the minor channels of the eastern outer courtyard of one's skull stand the 6 queens of yoga, who enact the rites of pacification. So we're getting a little bit more finite. We're talking about pacification that the gatekeepers were trying to question us about. So here is the yak-headed Manu Raksasi, brownish white and holding a vajra; snake-headed Brahmani, yellowish white and holding a lotus; leopard-headed Raudri, greenish white and holding a trident; weasel-headed Vaishnavi, bluish white and holding a wheel; brown bear-headed Komari, reddish white, holding a short pike; and black bear-headed Indrani, white and holding a noose of entrails. O you, the 6 yogini from the east, who enact the rites of pacification, perform the rites which pacify our fears of the intermediate state. So these beings, this is called the Ishvari. These are the Ishvari. So I'm going to bring this back up again. So here was the Matara. Here, this green band going around, this was the Pasachi. Then here, now we are in this band here of these queens of yoga. This is the outer courtyard. This is the outer courtyard. We're entering, we're coming in through this gate. And then we're in this courtyard of this Ishvari that are helping us. So this particular one was the eastern courtyard, which is these deities right here. So these names right here, let me see if I can, whoops, nuts. How do I do this? All right. Well, I can't zoom this. I'm sorry. But if you could read the names here, so then that's what I just read. Then we move to the next gate, and then here, the next courtyard, and here are these Ishvari. Then over here are these other Ishvari in the western gate, in the western courtyard. Then over here in the northern. So these different courtyards. So we're just entering into the mandala. from the basic level, from the base level, and so on. And so we're purifying our understanding, our practices of, in this case, pacification. What is pacification? So it says here to pacify our fears of the intermediate state, to overcome our fears. So the next page is the southern gate. So this would be over here. So it says, in the minor channels of the southern outer courtyard of one skull stand the 6 queens of yoga who enacts the rites of enrichment. Bat-headed Vajrapingala, yellow and holding a razor. Crocodile-headed Santi, reddish yellow and holding a vase. Scorpion-headed Amrita, reddish yellow and holding a lotus. Hawk-headed Salmi, whitish yellow and holding a vajra. Fox-headed Dandy, greenish yellow and holding a cudgel. Tiger-headed Raksasi, blackish yellow and drinking from a blood-filled skull. O you, the 6 yogini from the south, who enact the rites of enrichment, form the rites which enrich pristine cognition during the intermediate state. So we were doing pacification of fear that was in the east. Now we're in the south. Now we're doing enrichment. Enrichment, we're increasing our knowledge, increasing our understanding, which enrich the pristine cognition, the pure, the clear light, the pristine cognition, the clear light of the intermediate state, what it is to be in the intermediate states, not just this particular intermediate states, but all the intermediate states, to understand what the Bardo Thodol is better, and so on. So, so these beings have human bodies, but they have animal heads, and it's indicative that, you know, impure beings, you know, we're on our path, we're on our way to be able to purify ourselves as complete human beings, to have the complete, you know, the physicality of the human being, you know, for this purpose of study and so on. And it's showing this with animal heads because we're still behaving like animals. That's why we're not in the center to begin with, because we still have all these animalistic and inferior kinds of ordinary, impure thoughts and actions and so on that we participate in. So then we come to page 59 here in the text, and it says, Om Ah Hum. In the minor channels of the western outer courtyard of one skull stand the 6 queens of yoga, who enact the rites of subjugation. Here is vulture-headed Baksasi, greenish-red and holding a club. Horse-headed Rakti, red and holding a human torso. Garuda-headed Rudamati, pale red and holding a cudgel. Dog-headed Ekarini Raksasi, red and holding a vajra. Hoopoe-headed Manokarika, red and firing an arrow from a bow. And deer-headed Siddhakari, greenish-red and holding a vase. O you, the 6 yogini from the west, who enact the rites of subjugation, perform the rites which assure our interdependence during the intermediate state, which assure our independence during the intermediate state, our independence. So here what this means is that we are liberating ourselves from all these things, all these egocentric things, all these thoughts, all these mental misconceptions that are holding us back, and to be able to ultimately liberate ourselves as being a human being, as only being a human being, to become a realized human being, that our Buddha nature, to be enlightened in this lifetime.
Pema Dorje, I had a question.
Sure.
So the way I'm reading this, it's at this point, if you're thinking about it from the top down, the person has died. they've been unable to prevent themselves from leaving the mandala, but now they're just trying to maintain they have a human birth and not some other type of birth. In a good human birth where they can hear the Dharma. It sort of seems like that's what's going on there. Was that accurate, you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. The Dharma is the scripture, is the teaching that all this is elaborates all of this. So yes.
I mean, they're just this is all function with just having a good rebirth in the immediate state. You're kind of like giving up the hope that you're not going to be born in the immediate state, the human realm. But now, as long as we're going to be in the human realm, let's try and make this the best experience we can have.
Well, that's right.
Okay.
Yes. So each death can be a further step in the process of purification, of moving along the path. So another lifetime, going to another school, having another life in order to be able to avoid the contaminations that we go through that keep us bound up as being born again, dying again, born again, dying again, and so on. So yeah, so knowing all this, this is all this intellectual stuff that liberates us. Without this understanding, without this intellectualization, then you're like a leaf in the wind if you're born into a human body. But if you're born in a miraculous body like a Buddha, that is even beyond the miracle, then you don't need any of this. But to understand this intellectually is what a human being has to do. And this is what is apparent. What that means is our mind is looking at everything that we see, all this physical stuff. And it's all stuff that is fabricated in our mind. We're pulling our senses together. But then we're also taking our imagination. We're taking that element of the mind that creates all these things and so on, and we're creating this process. We're creating this structure. This structure for many people would be a crushing, binding device that would completely eliminate them or completely obscure them from being able to be liberated because they're so bound up in the mechanics of all of this. But then we have this thing to learn all this in order that we don't have to abide in all of this. And that's the paradox. That's the craziness of this. That's what sounds so bizarre. And we've laughed about this, with my teachers. We get to this point of realizing that, but it's more than just an exercise. It's something, a wise person has gone through all the vicissitudes of success and failure. That's what makes them wise. If all they have is success of being able to do this, do that, do this all the right way and everything, they just seem to instinctively do it. When something unexpected happens, it completely crushes them. It's the example of being in the God realm. The gods are in this great realm. They live very long times. They have very big lifetimes and so on. They have great pleasure and so on, but they are completely ignorant or completely shut themselves off from the suffering of others. They have no compassion. so that when their time comes to die, they have a direct path right down to the lower realms because they had so many opportunities to do things, but they were so involved with their pleasure that they didn't understand that they could be helping other beings. In other words, they weren't very wise. They didn't have the skillful means to be able to enact whatever wisdom they did have to be able to say, well, this is how you do that, because they had just remained in their pleasure. The Buddhas, on the other hand, have worked up from being, an ordinary being, going through all these different realms into being able to liberate oneself from all these different levels and everything, and knows what it is to fail and what it is to succeed, and to bring both of these onto the same path. And that's how you become a wise teacher. So that's, you can call it a rationale, you can call it some kind of an explanation, whatever you call it. But that's the apparent thing. What is it to be a human being? Apparently, being a human being means we can have this conversation through computers and so on. Apparently, we can do all that. Apparently, we can have this table because it's temporary. Apparently, it's a table, and we'll call it that, but it's just a bunch of atoms and so on, and energy and so on like that. So these are mental things that we create for ourselves, including this system. But at some point, to be free, to become Buddha, we have to let go of all that. And that sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Well, that's the Heart Sutra, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Prajnaparamita.
Well, it does sound like it can be super overwhelming to meet all these wild animal-headed humans.
But they're just images to help us to remember that this is part of being a human being.
Yeah, so
Can't
this is
forget.
something that appear like a vision in our consciousness.
But it doesn't appear as a vision. It appeared in somebody's vision who drew it down, and now everybody's following like a herd of cattle.
Uh-huh.
But it
Well,
doesn't exist.
I mean,
It
yeah,
doesn't exist in what we call reality.
yeah,
It only
all
exists
this.
in our temporary reality.
Yeah, I would say it probably gonna be appear as kaleidoscope of some emotions or
Correct.
fears or
Correct.
whatever.
Correct.
And when you have some sort of system to classify those and recognize those, it's easier not to get overwhelmed because it's like you're going, oh, here we go through some fears, oh, here we go through some uh, purification stages, or here we go through whatever else, and just like they say, don't fear those, but face them and move on through the process.
Yeah. But if somebody says you don't fear it, but you haven't learned how to not fear,
Right,
it's just a vicarious experience of somebody telling you don't fear.
right.
But until you've met the demon and conquered the demon, you're still subject to the demon.
Yeah,
When you see the demon as yourself, I mean that's what we're trying to do.
yeah,
But to do it in this very subtle way.
yes.
And that's why this is considered to be a secret teaching. And this is why, it's said that, this isn't for everybody because this will scare the heck out of a lot of people, you know. And in many ways, that's part of the beauty of this is that you're startling yourself to want to know more, to want to get to the heart of this. Why am I scared? How can I overcome this? How can I be free of this?
Mm.
To recognize that I do get fearful, you know. If anyone says that they're not afraid of death, but doesn't have some kind of a spiritual understanding, I can't understand that.
That's a really great point, Pamadorja. The idea of the images being fearful and wrathful in a way of accommodating yourself to the fear of your own annihilation.
Exactly. There's a shock value that has a function within this purification process. That's the wisdom. That's the wisdom of the masters who have grown in this structure.
Pamadorja, each of these dakinis, or well, actually, they're not probably dakinis. They are like protectors or whatever.
Yoginis. They're
Yogin, yeah, they're yoginis. I mean, they're carrying some kind of implements or
right,
some kind of bodies or
right,
parts of bodies.
right.
If there is any explanation to the symbolism anywhere that you know?
Generally, it's just all the things that we fear.
Mm,
Whether it's a body part or it's a hammer, it's a cudgel, or it's a pike, or any of these things. They're things that we would feel threatened by. And they're beating us with these things. We're beating ourselves with these things. We're beating ourselves with our own fears.
So that we can kind of look into them and see like what is it really to fear there, and
Right.
like maybe there is not really that much, you know uh, you know we have to recognize and then move, yeah, but it's good to remind ourselves that there are many things that we actually can fear, although we don't do that every day. But
And
those
one of the
things
things
are.
I remember is when they say in some of the prayers, some of the practices, they say that you will do these practices, you will learn this dharma even at the risk of your own life.
Mm,
You know that you will do these things and you will remain virtuous even at the risk of your own life, because you realize that your life is just a temporary, empty thing.
mm,
And this is all the, you know, intellectualization of that emptiness thing.
yeah. Okay. So there is so I mean, if we rephrase the answer to this question would be, I mean, there is no any hidden symbolism in those things. They are what they are.
They
Like
are
we
what
just,
they are.
yeah, they are what they are.
And
So
they're just the shock value.
yeah, they're just shock. The
Yeah.
face shock value in them. So
And these that we're talking about right now, this Ishvari, they're called the Ishvari.
mm,
They are queens of the yoga, queens of yoga. So they're female, and and they give birth. You got to understand being female is that which gives birth, and the yoga is the union.
mm,
It's giving birth of the union. So these are in the outer courtyard. These are the first that you encounter from the bottom up, and the last that you encounter on going out. They are trying to help us to remain on the mandala if it's a top down experience. Here is the spiritual being, the spiritual body, who's about to become an egocentric body. And they're saying, no, 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 let me help you. Let me show you this. Let me beat you over the head with your own leg.
mhm.
Listen to me, and to keep them from going further. and that to be able to rescue themselves by remembering their practices and their teachings and their spiritual master and so on from the life that they just led. You know, so that's their work. That's what they're trying to do. They're queens of yoga. They're giving birth to union. Here is another opportunity, one of your last opportunities to stay in the mandala. If you don't listen to me,
Mm-hmm.
you're going further down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And each one of these deities, as we've been going through this, you know, the Matara were very powerful in what they do. The Pisachi were very powerful in what they do. And these gods of yoga, or excuse me, queens of yoga are powerful in what they do, but it's diminishing. It's diminishing at each one of these levels. They become more base, more gross in the way they do things. They become more human. You know, so as we're approaching, you know, we're meeting these people, and this is Sangha. These queens of yoga can be Sangha that we meet.
Mm-hmm.
People who, you know, say something to us, who influence us or something like that into this spiritual journey that we're on.
They can be people on TikTok too.
It could be, sure, why not? Yeah, I mean, look, we're on YouTube, you know,
Yeah.
and we're trying to do this as pure and as best as we can. You know, I'm what believe it or not, you know, I'm trying to express this from my heart through my brain. And my
Mm-hmm.
brain doesn't do a very good job of it. My heart is pure,
Mm-hmm.
and your heart is pure, you know, but it's being blocked up by the brain.
Yeah, that's what they say. All those things emerge from our brain.
But it's the heart that we need to communicate at.
Yeah.
That's the essence level, you know, that's the spiritual body.
Isn't it true that all the wrathful deities are located in the brain in the Tantric Buddhism? Because that's where the center is.
Yes.
And
And the
I mean,
peaceful are in the heart,
the peaceful in the heart and the
and
wrathful
the
are in
and
the
the
brain.
hero awareness holders are in the throat.
Right. Hero, what's the Sanskrit or the Tibetan for hero awareness holders? Do you know?
Vidyadhara.
Vijidar.
Oh,
Oh,
we
Vijidars.
give
Okay,
them.
sure.
So are they directly corresponding to the chakra centers, or they're like above and beyond that?
These are, you know, these are at the elemental level of spirit. This is
Oh, okay.
this is out of the body.
Hmm. So they're not within the energy flow structure.
Spiritual energy.
They're spiritual. Okay.
And what's starting to happen, you see, is, you know, we eject our consciousness when we die. We're ejecting that spiritual body, and then it's completely rare. You know, it's no way to be able to explain it, you know, like space or whatever. But then it starts coming together, it starts forming again, it starts wanting to have a body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're trying to prevent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, through these deities. That's what we're trying to do. So like I said, sometimes we are the queens of yoga. Sometimes we're the ones in the courtyard. So understanding these things, all these things that we talk about, 4 of these, 5 of these, 10 of these, 10, they're all there as an intellectual way of being able to organize the spiritual world as we experience it through our afflictive emotions and our mental misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, let me continue.
Yeah.
So now we go to page 59.
Mhm.
So this one was, let me just put a bottom line on what we just did, was the rites of enrichment, which enrich pristine cognition during the intermediate state. So we were going into a level here of enriching these concepts, what we've been talking about, this subtlety, we've been enriching that. We've been giving it more understanding. We've been painting in, the little colors and so on, and being able to try and make it more understandable at the intellectual level, which then opens up the intellect and allows the heart to be able to breathe.
Mm.
Mhm.
So now to page 59, it says, in the minor channels of the western outer courtyard of one's skull stand the 6 queens of yoga who enact the rites of subjugation. So subduing, magnetizing, subduing, there's energy going by, there's something going by, and you're pulling it into yourself. So here is the vulture-headed Baksasi, greenish red and holding a club, horse-headed Rati, holding a human torso, Garuda-headed Rudamati, pale red, holding a cudgel, dog-eared Ekarini Raksasi, red and holding a vajra, hoopoe-headed Manakarika, red and firing an arrow from a bow, and deer-headed Siddhikari, greenish red and holding a vase. O you, the 6 yogini from the west, who enact the rites of subjugation, perform the rites which assure our independence during the intermediate state. So I'd already read this. So we're going from negativity through coercion
Mhm.
and through contamination. That we are not subject to that negativity. We are not subject to that coercion. We're not subject to that contamination. It is there, but we've kind of protected ourselves from it. Our independence of those things, of fear, of attachments, of ego, of all this presence, we're making ourselves invisible, maintaining our independence. I'm just using examples. So then page 60 is in the minor channels of the northern outer courtyard of one skull stands the 6 queens of yoga who enact the rites of wrath or fierceness. I prefer fierceness. You can say wrath because they have such a strong aggression towards that which is negative, that they want to overcome it. But still, that wrathfulness, speaks of that hatefulness and so on. And I think that's counter to what, we're trying to do, is to develop love. And how can you develop love from hate? That to me is
Mm.
a difficult concept. So anyway, so this is the wolf-headed Devi, bluish green and brandishing an ensign. Ibex-headed Agnagi, reddish green and holding a firebrand. Sow-headed Varahi, blackish green and holding a noose of fangs. Crow-headed Kamundi, reddish green and holding an infant human corpse. Elephant-headed Bujana, blackish green and holding a bloated corpse. And snake-headed Vayunani, bluish green and holding a noose of snakes. O you, the 6 yogini from the north, who enact the rites of wrath, or the rites of fierceness, perform the rites which utterly destroy the confused perceptions of the intermediate state. So how does it destroy these confused perceptions? Does it actually destroy them, or does it neutralize them? Does it bring it all onto the path? Or is it taking a bazooka and putting it up against the wall and blowing it away in that way? I think that's a wrong connotation to it. I think being able to bring it together and neutralize it, I think is the right expression. So, and we do this through education and achievement, the transformation. Another way of saying this, what results is a transformation of that negativity, of that confused perception now has become enlightened perception. It's being able to understand the meaning of the Prajnaparamita, to understand what it is in the Heart Sutra.
So we need to understand the emptiness of these appearances,
Indeed, yeah,
and
yeah.
hopefully on the spot right there.
Well, that's right. And in the practice, you see, and that's why I think it's going to be so good for us. We're establishing all this vocabulary, all this definition stuff of all these deities and so on, which are all emptiness. It's all Sambhogagaya. But then see how this then works in its application is the next part. And that's why I think going to that, continuing this conversation that we're having, continuing this for the next month or 2 months, whatever it takes, is going to be invaluable. Rather than saying, okay, we just did the vocabulary, you guys, deal with it on your own. But instead, I think we've got the text, we'll make the time, and we'll do this. And it becomes part of the thing that changes you towards a more stable spirituality.
I'm kind of now realizing why do we have this fear of death? And I think part of that is subconsciously we remember or we understand that all those things they will appear before us. And
I don't think it's that
we,
literal.
or we're going to be facing our own like dark nature.
Well, maybe in this way, if you grew up in Tibet, let's say, and or you grew up in Italy, and you happen to read or see pictures of these wrathful deities, it's imprinted in your mind. Or if you saw the Dante's Inferno, if you saw images of that, it's imprinted in your mind. Your ego has been imprinted with that. And you take that fear of those and not understanding what it all means, you take that into death with you. Yeah, that's going to frighten you very much, of course.
Well, I would even
But do
say,
they actually exist? You take that and you manufacture those visions the same as you manufacture the visions that we see here.
but I could even say that it could be like subconscious knowledge of what's coming from our like past life experiences, from our past births and rebirths and
Yeah, but can you
past
control
deaths.
them? Can you control the subconscious?
No, like I mean, it's there.
Well, isn't that what dreams are about? Isn't that what the dream Bardo is about? Learning to control your unconscious, your subconscious.
Oh yeah, like what I'm saying, like nature originally we don't, but yeah, it takes practice.
Yes, it takes practice.
Yeah.
So the practice for us is on the cushion. It's in your bedroom when you're going to sleep, and how you prepare yourself for your sleep.
Sometimes sometimes we have like a lot of nightmares, and we have to deal with that.
Yeah, and recognizing what it is,
Yeah.
being able to learn how to decipher those dreams. All right, well, let me continue to the next page, 61. It says, Om Ahum. At the outer eastern gate of one skull is Vajra Mahakali, white, cocoa-headed, and holding an iron hook, another hook. At the outer southern gate of one skull is Vajra Mahachagala, yellow, gold-headed, and holding a noose, another noose. So we had the hook, now we got the noose. An outer western gate of one skull is Vajra Mahakumbhakarni, Mahakumbhakarni, red, lion-headed, and holding an iron chain, the iron chain. And the outer northern gate of one skull is Vajralambadara, dark green, snake-headed, and holding a bell. Holding a bell.
Mhm.
O you, the four female gatekeepers, queens of yoga, who enact the emanational rites, perform the rites which obstruct the doors leading to mundane rebirth from the intermediate state. I'll read that again. O you, the four female gatekeepers, queens of yoga, who enact the emanational rites, that emanate rites, perform the rites which obstruct the doors leading to mundane rebirth from the intermediate state. So these, what is emanating? Where is it emanating from? What is this emanating rite that obstructs the doors and closes them up? This emanation of this true nature, of this absolute that we talk about, this pure love, this bodhicitta, you know, but it's in its most, you know, fierce form, because once you pass through this gate, if you go through this gate from the top down perspective, if once you go through, there's no coming back. You know, this is like your last chance to be able to remain in the mandala. After this,
Mhm.
you're, you know, you're about to become a zygote if you're lucky.
Mhm.
So then,
I wonder if, you know, when I look at that diagram you drew and everything, it just makes me think that at this point, yeah, you are going to become a zygote, and we're just trying to make you have the best conditions for your rebirth that we can.
well, that's one way of looking at it, because you're taking these, we've been through this many times, you know, so it all accumulates into who we are now. And look, you know, we're all very fortunate beings. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now. So, yes, at least, well, anything we think about is conceptual. So, you know, we're just trying to give explanation for it. But the point is, your point is well taken. Yes, it all accrues to the next life that you have. You have more confidence to be able to face the next life and the imminent death that will come as a result of that. There's more confidence. There's less apprehension. And we've been there many times, you know, but whether we saw it in terms of these illustrations or not, who knows? But in terms of the afflictive emotions, in terms of the mental misconceptions, absolutely. And we've been acting that out through our habitual tendencies of this whole life that we've had for however many years we've been alive in this body. Our habitual tendencies have been giving ourselves away, you know, to ourselves and to other beings.
So basically, to recap, if we successfully face all of those many wild animal-headed beings with implements, then we go to like pure consciousness, Buddhahood, whatever, Um, but if we like uh, fearful, overwhelmed, or like antagonized by one of those, then we go towards one of the exits, right? And at the exit or entrance, we are met with these four. They're no longer yoginis. They are
We recognize them as being wrathful deities. Instead of
deities.
fierce deities who are trying to save us, they appear to us as demons that are trying to ensnare us.
Yeah, well, yeah, those yogini gatekeepers.
Yeah. So let me read this next part here on page 62. It says, to you, the 28 Ishvari, queens of yoga, I bow down, make offerings, take refuge, and pray. So these were the six in each of the four sections of the wheel, of the mandala, plus the four gatekeepers. It says, as soon as we, the deceased, die and begin to transmigrate, at that very moment, when the visions of the intermediate state of reality dawn, and we, the deceased, roam alone in cyclic existence, driven by deep seated, confused perceptions. May the seven Ishvari of the East draw us forward, leading us on the path of radiant, multicolored light, which is a vibrance of sounds, lights, and rays. May the seven Ishvari of the South support us from behind. May the seven Ishvari from the West support us from the perimeter. And may the seven Ishvari from the North destroy and liberate our enemies. And thus encircled, may we be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. So, what this means is to close the door, keep us on the mandala, and be able to allow the blessings of the compassion of the Harukas, of the peaceful deities, and so on, to restore ourselves, that we stay in that bardo of reality, of purity, to become a perfected Buddha. So it's like, here's a chance. So now we can stay in this palace. We don't have to leave the palace. So then it says on page 63, it says, Om Ahum. At this time when we dwell within the intermediate state of living. So this is talking to us now. We're in the intermediate state of living. At this time when we dwell within the intermediate state of living, the assembly of the 60 blood drinking deities is radiantly present within the celestial palace of the skull. All the crowns center within one's brain, embodied in the form of a cluster of 5 colored lights. Yet, as soon as we, the deceased, die and begin to transmigrate, the assembly of blood drinking deities will emerge from the brain and appear before us, filling the entire tricheliocosm. Each of the central and peripheral forms will be endowed with fearsome ornaments and attire, resounding with an immense space, vibrant with sounds, lights, and rays. The bodily demeanor of these wrathful deities will be elegant, heroic, and terrifying. Their roar, wild, murderous, and awesome, each blazing with the compassion, wrath, and fierce aversion, adorned by face markings of human ash, blood, and grease, dressed in skirts of moist hide and flayed tiger skin, decorated with skull garlands and wreaths of snakes, resplendent in a blazing mass of fire, which pounds with the cries of ha, ha, hom, pei, strike, kill.
Mhm.
Om Ahum. page 64. Reverberating like 1,000 peals of thunder, fully arrayed with hand emblems and multifarious faces, displaying the arts of transformations, they will pulverize and rock the infinite tricheliocosm. At that very moment, when the fierce sounds, lights, and rays dawn before us in terrifying manifestation, O you, the compassionately assembled, O you, the compassionate assembly of wrathful, blood-drinking deities, O beings of compassion, do not withhold your compassion at that time. As we roam in cyclic existence, as we roam alone in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated, confused perceptions of habitual tendencies, may the assembly of wrathful, blood-drinking deities draw us forward, leading us on a path of radiant, multicolored light, which is free of fear and terrifying perceptions. May the assembly of wrathful female deities, queens of the expanse, support us from behind. May the assembly of the Matara, Pisachi, and female gatekeepers support us from the perimeter. May the 8 Great Projectoresses, who propel beings to exalted rebirths, propel us from our mundane states into higher rebirth. May the diverse animal-headed Ishvari eliminate all obstacles. May the 4 supreme female gatekeepers obstruct the entrance to mundane births, and thus encircled, may we be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. So here, the reference to queens of the expanse, the tricheliocosm. This is like the great universe, what we consider to be the universe, this tricheliocosm. At this point, there's nothing more, there's nothing greater, more big than this expanse. And these are the queens of this expanse. These are the consorts to the Harukas, to the female. These are the female blood-drinking deities. And with no fear, they consume being in a human being. They drink it down and enjoy it. Unimpeded enjoyment. And they're supporting us from behind, the Matara, the Pisachi from the sides and so on. And the Projectoresses, who can fling us out, into reality to become perfect Buddha. Then it says, Om Ahum. I'm on page 65 in the middle. Om Ahum. When we roam alone, separated from our loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, may the Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled. When the radiant multicolored light path of pristine cognition dawn, may we recognize its nature without awe and without terror, and as the manifold forms of the peaceful and wrathful deities arise, may we be fearlessly confident and recognize the characteristics of the intermediate state. When we recognize suffering as the result of negative past actions, may our meditational deities utterly display all such misery, and as the natural sound of reality reverberates like 1,000 peals of thunder, may all sounds be heard as the sacred resonance of the greater vehicle. When we are driven on by past actions, without a refuge, may the great compassionate one, Maha Karunika, protect us. And as we experience suffering generated by habitual tendencies and past actions, may the meditative stabilities of inner radiance and bliss naturally arise. May the fields of the 5 elements not rise up as a hostile force, but may we see these as the Buddha fields of the 5 enlightened families. By the blessing of the spiritual teachers of the oral lineage, by the compassion of the assembly of peaceful and wrathful deities, and by the force of the purity of my altruistic aspiration, may all the aspirational prayers here expressed be immediately realized. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. So here we would recite Om Mani Padme Hum Shri, the liberation mantra, as many times as we can, visualizing the white Om going to the God realm deities, the green light, the Ma going to the demigod realm, the yellow light going to the human realm, the the light blue light going to the animal realm, the red light going to the hungry ghost, anguished spirit realm, and the dark blue black light going to the hell realms, all emanating from the Shri syllable in the center, the pure light, the clear light, going energizing this Om Ah Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, going to all these beings, purifying all beings, to rescue them from their suffering. So, Bernie, what do you think? You're muted. You're muted. Bernie, you're muted.
Okay, it's very interesting. I just have a few comments. It's generally true in all forms of Buddhism, not just in Tantric Buddhism, that there's sort of guardians of the gate,
Okay.
and they're generally visualized as wrathful beings. The interesting thing about this practice is generally the guardians are to protect things from coming from the outside. Here, they're to protect you from leaving the mandala. And that's the interesting difference. Of course, the number and different types of guardians are much greater in this particular text than you usually see in the usual Tibetan. But it's kind of an elaboration of a traditional pattern to have sort of wrathful deities around the mandala, guarding the edges of the mandala. So that's not unusual. And the way that they work in here, the four activities of pacifying, enriching, I remember magnetizing, but subjecting and destroying, subduing, subjecting, subduing. It's about the same thing. Okay, that's interesting that they assign them to the different gates. That's really an interesting thing to me as well. The only thing that really threw me a lot for make me confused is that they mentioned that some deities have the color greenish red. I don't know what the color greenish red would be. That would be maybe some parts of the deity are green and other parts are red, but green and red generally don't mix as colors. You don't get a color when you mix the colors green and red. So I'm
They
not sure
become
what
like a
they're.
brown.
Yeah, we think so, but do they mean like I was thinking maybe they're like an apple, parts of it are green and other parts of it are red,
Well,
but I don't know. I don't know. That's the one thing that had me a little confused. It's hard to remember all the details, of course, but and then we have the different classes of deities and the different animal heads and the different implements that they all have. I mean, I understand in general why they're pictured that way. So yeah,
what
it's
does it
it's
mean to
very
you? What does it
interesting.
mean to you personally?
I'm trying to relate all this to what I think of what the intermediate state would be like for me, and I see that that when we're talking about animal-headed deities, we're talking about sort of like lower level deities that represent the life force on Earth. That they're sort of partaking of the sort of halfway between the divine and the animal realm. That they're sort of they're taking part in both of them, so that they represent to me sort of like the forces of life, that's the forces that sustain and maintain a life. That's just, I mean, that's just a conjecture on my part, but rather than being like the Buddhists, which represent the higher nature of man, that
Well,
the
that begs the
animal had
question.
against. Yeah.
That begs the question.
Why do you think so?
Well, because, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but, this is the first time you've been introduced to the Bardo Thodol like this?
Yeah, this is the first time I've gone through it in this detail. Yeah, sure.
So you're speaking you're speaking of it purely intellectually.
Well, yeah, it's my first reaction. You asked me for
All
what
right,
my
well, yeah.
reaction is. That's what I'm
Okay,
giving
so
you.
I'm just trying to point out that what this begs is the contemplation and the repeated meditative practice of this to be able to experience this, to become the embodiment of the six bardos within yourself in this life, and it's more than just an intellectual process.
Uh, Okay, sure. I'm sure it's
What do you
more.
think of that?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to come to uh, come to some kind of understanding of all this, and I just want to withhold judgment this time. I'm certainly not in a position to say what it's all about in any kind of authoritative sense. I've never received a teaching on the Bardo Thodol from a lama that goes into it in great details. So yeah, I really have to. I mean, I've always been taught if you don't understand anything, you really shouldn't try to talk about it. So it would be best. But since you asked, of course, I'm going to give you my opinion. But yeah, so that's why I've been pretty quiet tonight because I really don't know what this stuff is all about. I'm just trying to listen to it and try to make some relationship to it right now.
Do you think you are worthy of engaging in the practice?
The practice, well, my main practice just every day is just to do Chen raising, and I'm very happy to do that practice. Now, if you mean do the practice for somebody else, if it went beyond just reading the text, I'm afraid not.
Well, all right. Well,
Because I don't have, I mean, generally, it's not a practice that I've been taught. It's not a practice that I've received any teaching on. I don't have any sort of inner understanding of it, and I haven't even really studied it intellectually. So I would really feel out of my depth if I tried to do the practice on my own right now, for sure.
fair enough. We've only got a few minutes left till 9 o'clock, and I don't want to, close, on somebody making a statement. But if does anybody have something you want to make, a statement in the next couple minutes? Um, and then if you have things that you want to talk about that take longer, we can begin, continuing this conversation uh, next week. Because I think this is really good stuff, and I think to the questions I was asking Bernie, I think applied to us all. About how do we relate to this, and are we worthy of being able to engage in this, and so on, and who is this for, and can we do it, and so on. What does it take to do it? So I'd love to hear people's response to that, and try and encourage everybody to engage in the practice. Does anybody have a statement now you'd like to make or a question?
Well, I feel like Bernie feels. This is my first time through it, so I'm just feeling pretty overwhelmed. But I know from you know starting out on any path, you feel pretty overwhelmed at first. So even though I'm 99% of this is going over my head, still there's that 1% that's sticking with me. And I think at least I have something that if somebody dies and I want to do something for them, I now have something I can do for them. I can read this, and whatever merit I'm generating, um, I can dedicate to them.
Well, just on that point, I think that if you did have a situation where you had to do that and not being familiar with all of this and so on, I wouldn't encourage anybody to be reading this for anybody. But what I would encourage you to do is to read the four prayers. If you look at the table of contents, the two prayers that we generally read in the beginning, the root verses of the six intermediate states, and the natural liberation of habitual tendencies that we read, and then the two other prayers are the aspirational prayer that rescues from the dangerous pathways, and the apparitional prayer that protects from fear. Those four prayers, I think anybody can read and read for somebody else, and they are the consolidation, if you will, of the energy without going into all the details that the rest of the book does go into and so on. Because it is a heart transmission. And if your heart is not open, if there's any doubt, if there's any confusion, if there's suspicion or whatever you want to say, then it's better not to be transmitting that. In other words, keep it simple, and not try and go in places that you're not totally comfortable in. I would definitely say that to you because it is a heart transmission. And that's the benefit of receiving empowerment from the lamas and why we want to take an empowerment from a higher lama than a lower lama, because it's their heart transmission that we're really responding to. And if there's any doubt, it's going to contaminate that transmission. So I hope that makes some sense to you.
Yeah, I just want to have my little comment there here that I happen to be introduced in this 100 deities practice earlier, and on the second round it does make much more sense than before. Your mind would, first time your mind asking why so much, why this and that and that, and um, you know, after a while you realize, oh yes, because we have all that in the world, and we may not see it every day, but the longer you live, the more you know things are there, whether we aware of them or not, and they linger in our consciousness or around us.
Okay, thank you. So next time we'll get into the rest of the text, and we'll begin with the aspirational prayer calling to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for assistance. So you'll see the dynamic now of engaging within yourself, because the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are within ourselves and so on. And we've identified, we've identified the indestructible diamond at our heart center and all the different facets. Now it's a question of being able to see how their activity works and being able to rescue, someone who is who is in the Bardo from falling through the cracks into another life that maybe they don't want to have. All right. So I'm going to recite as closing just on page, couple of pages here, page 211. This is in the third prayer. It says, Om Ah Hom. May the fields of the 5 elements not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the fields of the 5 Buddhas. May the elements of space not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the blue Buddha. May the elements of water not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the white Buddha. May the elements of earth not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the yellow Buddha. May the elements of fire not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the red Buddha. May the elements of wind not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the green Buddha. May the awesome sounds, lights, and rays not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the infinite fields of the peaceful and wrathful, fierce deities. May the rainbow-colored elements not rise up as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the manifold Buddhas. May I recognize all sounds as my own sounds. May I recognize all lights as my own lights. May I recognize all rays as my own rays. May I spontaneously recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. May the fields of the 3 Buddha bodies be manifest. Then the next page. The aspirational prayer which protects from the fear of the intermediate states. When my life's course is ended and I roam alone in the intermediate states, the loved ones of this world can no longer help me. So at this critical time, may the conquerors, the peaceful and wrathful, fierce deities quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the deep darkness of my ignorance be dispelled. When I roam alone, separated from my loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, may the Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled. When the 5 radiant lights of pristine cognition dawn, may I recognize them as my own nature, and without awe and without terror, and as the manifold forms of the peaceful and wrathful deities arise, may I be fearlessly confident and recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. Then, page 218. Through the compassion of Samantabhadra and the infinite peaceful and wrathful fierce deities, by the power of the truth of pure reality, and by the blessing of the mantrans who practice one-pointedly, may every wish of this aspirational prayer be fulfilled. Samaya. Om. Ah. Hong. Om. Ah. Hong. Om. Ah. Hong. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Mangalam, Sri Zala Zambupipa, Alankar Bhavantu, Sarva Mangalam. By the virtue of this Dharma work, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and attain enlightenment. May all beings and activities be auspicious for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Turkjej, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. Good night. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah. Oh, Lance, are you are you coming this Wednesday? I can never keep